cool. I'll do more. I have to do more tasks.
Where are you on the screen, Sean? You got three.
What's that now?
I've got 3 videos up, right? You, me, and Spiky. Spiky's at the bottom. You and me are side by side on my screen, and we've both got the same background.
We sure do.
And right in the centre, between the two of us, looks like there's a pair of eyes looking at us.
Oh, that's right. Right there. That's cool.
Looks like a werewolf or something in the trees.
Yeah. It's crazy.
I wonder if it's Omar spying on us.
Shall we
Okay.
get started?
Yeah. Sheila, Ada, will you be asking questions about the challenge? I'll be answering some questions. If anyone's got any questions about it, then we can definitely answer them. I will run through some of the criteria as well for the challenge, so everyone's clear on that. Should we go straight into that now, or do you want to, Spikey, you got anything you want to go through first, or?
Not.
You're looking very scary in the dark there.
That's supposed to be like that. I can make it brighter, but
No, it's
I want
fine.
it to be a
We
bit
can
more
still
light.
see you. Right, okay, I'll just let me just open up. Right, okay. Our Halloween challenge is a horrific habitation is the title. So it's based on the new course on CG Cookie by Keenan. Astray. You can see me and Sean have both got the background image, and it's based on that course. It just, I would say, don't worry too much about modelling, because what we really want to see is atmospherics and a scary scene. So obviously model what you need to model, but don't be too specific on perfect polygon modelling, because if the volumetrics and the lighting and everything is the way we really want it to be to make it look scary, the modelling, you're going to spend too much time on modelling and try and focus on camera movement and volumetrics and lighting, which I would probably want to spend most of my time on those things. Who's that shady lady? Do all the assets need to be new? If you've got assets on your hard drive that you can reuse, then by all means reuse them. That's not a problem. You don't have to do everything from scratch. The criteria, as I just mentioned, what we're looking for is good. Well, it's got good quality modelling and texturing, but obviously it needs to be to a certain standard, so good. Effective camera work, a good use of volumetric fog or smoke, a good standard of lighting paired with volumetrics to create an eerie atmosphere. So as you can see in our background, you can see basically all you've just got is silhouettes of trees and a house, and so you know, I wouldn't spend too much time modelling and try and get a good animation at the end, if that makes sense. And the categories, there's going to be 5 categories for prizes. One's going to be most creative, most fun, best whip, and we'll talk about the whips in a second, best camera work, and best lighting. So categories, there's no modelling category because that's not the focus of the challenge. The challenge is more about the atmosphere and the scariness of the
Presentation, right?
yeah. There's 2 chances per category. We're going to have a community choice award. Like with the emoji challenge, we're going to have the community select the best of each category through emojis, and the CG Cookie Crew Award, which will be voted for by the crew. You know, Jonathan, Kent, Wayne, all the usual. There's some recommended viewing courses to watch if you wish to. Obviously Astray, because that's what we've based the challenge on. Directing the Camera by Wayne, which is a great course, especially the handheld camera lesson, which he goes through some adding some shape to the camera, like as if it's mobile phone footage or something like that. There's Kent's Realistic Industrial Environment. Obviously that goes through a lot of volumetrics and lighting in that course. And Alien Abduction is basically VFX. If anyone wanted to add any sort of kind of VFX to their scene. The rules are: use Blender. All 3 objects are your own. No third party models. But like I say, if you've got reusable assets already made from, I mean, there's a lot of people made assets, you know, interior assets and exterior assets from the collab last year. Those could be reused to save yourself some time. All 3 objects are your own. Create your whip thread in the Horrific Habitation Whips channel on Discord. Again, I'll look through that in a minute. Submit your final video to the Horrific Submissions channel on Discord, and it's open to everyone, not just CG Cookie subscribers. There is a discount code for anyone that's not a CG Cookie subscriber that wants to have a look at those courses, and I'll just put that in the chat for anyone that wants it. That's the code you can use if you want to subscribe, and you'll get $31 off. We chose 31 because it's the 31st of October, and that's just where $31 come from. The prizes is $31 off an annual subscription, or $31 to spend at Blender Market. If you are already a CG Cookie subscriber, you're not going to want another $31. You get featured across CG Cookie social networks with your own social media tags, accounts tagged. 500 XP for CG Cookie subscribers, and some fun. This is the last prize, and that's basically the challenge. Now for the whips in the Discord, we've got CG Cookie challenges section, and we have a forum that has two active threads in it at the moment.
Yeah, do you want me to share some of that?
Do you want to? Well,
Yeah.
I've
So
got it.
This is
It's-
a new feature of CG Cookie, and if you scroll down on the CG Cookie forum here, let's see. Can you guys see that? Let me go to screen share.
I think it was a great idea to use these forums for this particular for whip threads. It's perfect, I think.
Can you guys see that?
Yeah, we got you.
Okay, I'm gonna not share mine. Let's go back to grid view. But on the left-hand side of the CG Cookie server, towards the bottom, we have the CG Cookie challenges section, and you just open that up, and we've got we go. You've got the main challenge announcement regarding all of our challenges, and the latest one we have is the horrific habitation. And then we have a new feature the Discord just came out with, and it's called forums. And think of a forum as like your own little channel. And everybody who's participating in the challenge can make a new post. And the post is going to be your whip. So we've got 2 posts already from people who are excited to get started. So this one is posted by Wardred, and this one is posted by Thibault. And they're basically starting out with some sort of share, don't tell, like what the scene's going to be about, and then some reference images prepping up the scene. And Thibault's also included his own little calendar for the things he wants to do. So his modeling and texturing, he's going to be doing on his shading and environment, setting up his lighting, and then his animations. And all you have to do is come up and make a new post, and your post will show up here. And anytime you make updates for your whips, you just add them in.
Yeah,
and then people can follow the whips. So you can click on the little follow button here, and it will post updates every time an update's made.
I'll just say the get started section at the top, and I think that Discord section as well. You won't see that. That's only for moderators of the site. All you'll see is the forums at the bottom.
Yep. Now there is a Discord that talks about a little bit more about forums and how they work. You'll probably see this as well. But you can go ahead and get started with your own post, and then you can look at other people's posts to see what their whips are. And one of the rewards is by the best whips. So this is a feature you're going to want to take advantage of for the challenge.
Exactly.
Do we have any questions regarding that?
No questions. Wardred's typing. Let's just see what he's got.
I'll stop screen share just for a second. But I think forums is actually going to be perfect format for this challenge, because your stuff won't get lost in just a regular channel because it'll be dedicated to you. And
yeah,
that's going to be great for the whips.
Yeah, previously would have been on the CG Cookie site posting whips, but that can get lost within a day. You have to scroll through, especially now that it doesn't actually automatically post the last. It doesn't order the questions in order of latest post, does it? It's latest question asked, but not answers added.
Yeah, I think the Discord is the best suited for this.
Yeah,
because you'll never get moved down. Your whip is always going to be present in that whip's location for the forum.
Yeah. And just below that, the forum section, you've got another channel called Horrific Submissions, which is where you can post your final renders, and then that will be where voting will take place as well, as from the 1st of November, for probably a week.
And there's still the challenge chat, if like people just want to talk about the challenge, maybe techniques or things.
Exactly.
Questions regarding the challenge. There's just a dedicated challenge chat to continue on. So that's where we did the emoji challenge. We had a lot of people posting stuff there from the last challenge. Okay, so
yeah.
Wardred had a question a little bit higher up about an add-on, not quite related to the forum.
Can we use the add-on if we find it? Which add-on is that? Or have I missed something?
Oh, a camera shake add-on. So our add-ons allowed, basically, for making your scene. Can you use a camera shake add-on or any other add-on that helps you generate your scene?
Yeah, I can't see why not.
As long as it's in Blender, go for it.
Yeah, camera shake add-on. Yeah, I don't see why not. It's still part of Blender, isn't it? It's not using any third-party software, so or it is, but it's still Blender.
Still Blender.
Okay, that's basically the challenge. Nothing else to go through on the challenge? We've done the rules, done prizes. Yeah, it runs until 31st of October, midnight. That's Central Standard Time, is it? In the US.
Yes.
It's not daylight saving anymore, is it? Or is that's gone now, is it?
Oh man, don't ask me. I think it's later. I forget when it stops.
Anyway, Central Time, US, midnight.
Daylight saving time is
End of October.
End of October, yeah.
So 31st will be no longer daylight saving.
Yeah. I think it's the last weekend of the month over here.
The conferences in that weekend.
Yeah.
Change the time.
Oh, fun.
Okay, that's it for the challenge.
So
Did you?
I think we wanted to. I remember that we had discussed this. Should I bring up the crew challenge? Should we talk about that?
Yes. Yes. Shall we?
Yeah. So this is just an idea that I had, and we'll reach out to you guys, those of you who are here. Maybe we'll post it in the challenge chat as well. But we thought it would be fun for the crew to also go head to head on our own separate challenge and the community votes. What do you guys think about that?
What about you, Spike? Are you up for that? Yeah, I know you love the challenge, so
Actually,
I know you like the challenges.
yeah.
So if we can either go head to head, or we could even collaborate on a challenge. If you know, time permitting, because you've all got full-time jobs to do, and
Collaboration might be a problem in this case. And also, I'm at another conference, so I only have.
yeah, of course.
Ah,
I'm leaving the 22nd. So
well, I want to participate, and
Yeah, me too.
I'm not going to go up against the community members since I'm part of the crew.
Yeah, but
but I think it'd be fun for us crew to take on each other, and it's just for fun, just to challenge ourselves as well.
yeah. The other thing that was mentioned, I think Amber mentioned it as a suggestion, is that, or was it you, Sean? I can't remember now. Someone mentioned a role for the challenge winner at the end.
Yes.
So you'll have your own role on Discord, highlighting you as a winner in the challenge. You'll
Yeah,
have,
I think we probably ought to add that to the announcement.
Yeah.
Winners will have a special role assigned to their username in Discord.
yeah. Until they keep that probably till the next challenge takes place.
Yeah.
And
The
that
heavyweight
switch to the
titles.
next person. On that subject, I think we're trying to have regular challenges, but where last year I think we had too many, and it's quite a job to keep coming up with ideas and to keep. It's quite a bit of work to arrange them all and to organise them and write up a post and get the announcement out there. So I think the idea is to maybe have 4 a year as a minimum. So it'd be like Halloween, winter holidays, summer, maybe Valentine's, something like that. And it could be, if anyone's got any ideas on what challenges, what times of year would be a good idea for challenges. Obviously Halloween is definitely one. The summer and probably Christmas holidays. But if anyone's got ideas for any more, we'll definitely look at those.
Ooh, Easter. sounds like a fun one.
Easter, that's a good one. Snow and trees and snowman. That'd be our winter holiday season.
Yeah, so winter, some sort of spring/Easter challenge, a summer challenge, and a fall challenge. Right, one per quarter, I guess.
Yeah. Oh, I like that. Easter eggs and rabbits. That's what, April. So
Yeah,
breaks up.
if I think if we do it per season, we can kind of change the theme
Yeah,
of the 4 seasons.
yeah. Yeah, that's a good idea. I like that. Easter's a good one.
Sweet, I think that sounds good.
Yeah. I think last year, I think it was Pavla that suggested Valentine's, but we never went with it. We went with Pokemon instead. Everyone loves a Pokemon.
Yeah, I like that one. That one was awesome. I didn't participate, but it was fun watching.
Yeah. Okay, that's it for what I wanted to talk about with the challenges. We'll go back through the chat later on, and I'll take some of these ideas as well, if any more come in. Chinese New Year. Okay. Moving on. Sean, Spikey, you got anything you want to add? Or you want to go through?
There were some questions in the stream question, but I actually don't know the answers to them.
So, I know
About
Swordred
linking
asked some
and
pretty
the
good.
difference
Yeah.
between linking and so on, and overrides, library overrides. I've been playing with it, and I still don't see how it's supposed to work, or I can't get it to work.
It's
That's not the
changed.
way I expect.
It's
I
changed
can
a bit
cover
recently,
library
hasn't it?
overrides. Yeah, it changes with each major revision of Blender. It wasn't. The behavior seems to be different every time they have a major release. But I can talk a little bit about library overrides. I'm not going to claim to be an expert, but I have actually been using it on my latest project with Phil on our Bucky scene. So I can go into that and just show like the benefit of using library overrides and where that would make sense.
Yeah, who was it asked about that? Are they here? Was it? Do you know who asked? I think was it Wardred?
Martin, I think.
Martin. Yeah, Martin's here. Yeah, if you want to just quickly go through that then, Sean, that would be... Of course I'm here.
Yeah, Martin. So you want to know more about library overrides, right? Their usage and benefits. Is that kind of the gist? You just wanting to know how to use them, if possible. Okay. Well, I'll show you how I've been using them. How about that? All right. Let me open an instance of Blender here, and let me swap. Do a screen share.
Okay, we got your Blender.
Okay, give me just 1 second here. Okay, you guys see my Blender okay?
Yeah.
All right, so this is my default Blender scene. I have a little bit of a different color theme applied, but it's fairly similar to the default Blender. And our latest project that I've been working on with Phil is we've been working on a character inspired by the Bluey series, and his name, we call him Bucky. And he's an animated rig. Let me go to my Google Drive. And so, because he's a shared file between a few different people, we have him located on a server, and then the master file is able to be accessed from all of us in just that shared location, much like we've been doing in the previous collabs. So we have a master file, and inside that file, we go to the collections, and we just link in the master collection. And there he is. Look at him. So when he comes in as what looks to be a collection, and the icon is a little bit different than a standard collection icon. And what this really is if you look down at the object data properties, this is actually the data properties for an empty. And you can move the empty around, you can rotate it, you can scale it, and you can do a few things with it, but you can't go into edit mode. Let me try turning on, do I have screencast keys? Yeah. Screencast keys, there we go. So when I hit the tab key, it's not going to do anything. In fact, it's disabled. There is no edit mode. And I can try clicking on the collection below, and the same thing happens. You can't do anything to this rig because it's linked data. And so if I want to be able to do anything with the actual character rig to get this guy to animate, it's really beneficial to link in the data, because if I need to go back and change something on the master file, all we have to do is save and reload. Go to file up here, save, and then hit revert, and all the changes from the master file will come in. And the override allows you to do multiple things. So let's go ahead and override this guy, and I can actually click on just the master empty holder, and you just go up to object, and under library override, there's a make library override. And when you do that, the link symbol, so there a few things happen. One, that little empty thing is gone. It's now changed into a collection, and the linked collection now has an arrow going through it, it's like the indication that you have now overridden that linked file, and you can start doing things to it inside of Blender, but it still maintains certain relationships with the original data from the first file or the master file. And if we open this up, this rig comes with 3 different collections from the main file, and they're also all overridden. So if the objects live in collections, all the sub-collections will get overridden as well. And that allows me to select on, if I open these up, I've got like geos, all the objects are also getting an override. So every one of these objects, I've now got options to do things like go into edit mode. Well, I can't do edit mode because only the object has been overridden, which allows me to move it. And I can animate the object, I can insert keyframes, but I can't go into edit mode because this is just a linked object. The original data lives in the master file. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So as long as you have an override on the objects, you can start moving more than just the empty for the collection. You can start moving, scaling, keyframing. You can do all sorts of things. And this is really handy specifically for the rig. So this entire control rig, I actually can go into pose mode. And so now I can come in here and, move his head around. And the good thing about this is if I want to go do something in the original file, it will save, and all those changes can now be reverted back. But what doesn't get overridden from, let's go back to object mode. When I did that object and library override, it did not override the data. So all the materials still show the link status, and the actual mesh data still shows the link status. So they're not overridden. The override stops at the object level when you use the operator. All right, let's see what Martin has to say. So when you're done with it, you load it back up to the server, and the next one downloading need to override it as well. So this is just like a use case file. I would use this file to animate the rig, and I'm not actually hurting anything with the master file. My master file still looks great and fine. Let me open another instance in Blender just to open him. It's just to share that. So instead of linking the file in, I'm actually going to go into the Google Drive and actually open the master file. So in the master file, I can do whatever I want. I can go in and I can edit, a vertex, move it way out of the way. Let me probably do like a material or something. Let's try that. So if I wanted to change these eyebrows, and assign them to white instead. Go to edit mode and we'll assign them as white. When I save this file, I'm on my linked file here. I have to save as and save this somewhere, so I'll just save this to my desktop. So now when I go to File and Revert, you'll notice how the eyebrows and this arm, they took the changes of the original file. But I'm still in a rigged pose. Like, the pose didn't change because it's been overridden. So it's not going to pull anything from the pose that the master file had, because the override is going to take care of overriding that original data. That's like the real benefit of overrides. Now, if you wanted to go deeper, you can actually override this data as well. And I believe all you have to do is, this is the part where I'm not as experienced, but there's another way to override as well. And if you're in the outliner, you can right click and go to library override, and you can make an additional library override. And now I'm overriding the actual data. And I don't think you can go into edit mode when you're doing that, or sculpt mode. But it allows you to do things inside the object data properties. And one of the ones that I know I've worked with a lot is actually the materials. And so I can override, let's override the, like the light gray material. Let's do light gray 4. Okay, I can make a library override for that. And now on that material, light gray 4, I can start changing its properties. Or I can start keyframing, I think. Yeah, it'll allow me to keyframe. And let's see, let's go to light 4. So the light gray 4 will have this on it, and I can actually, I think I can change, yeah, I can change the material inside the file now. But for materials that aren't overridden, you won't have that ability. Like, you can't select anything on it until you override that material. So hopefully that makes sense. So they've tried to make library overrides semi-user friendly, but it can be really frustrating when you're wanting to get farther down into your data and you're finding out that, oh, my override didn't go very far. Like, it only overrode a couple of things, and I wanted to do like materials where you have to go further and do them manually. Hopefully that helps though with library overrides. If you want to change something with the base mesh, like let's say you brought this file in and you want to completely change the arm, you're going to be destructively changing the mesh data at that point. So the link is probably not going to be what you want. This is my understanding at least. You're going to probably need to break the library override by making the thing local instead. And so I believe that's through object and relations, and I believe it's make local. Is that right, guys?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, I think so.
And oh, it still won't let me do it. So let's find this guy in my outliner. So the arm is now local. Lucky arm. I think would have hoped that it would have allowed me to do that, but you might have to do relations, make local, object, and data. So now that I've done the data, now I can go into edit mode. There we go. So the object is just the container. The data is the thing that you have to also make local. Is there any use? Oh, go ahead.
Go on. Is there any use of the unlink, since it seems just to destroy?
I don't have a ton of experience using unlink. Mikey or Adrian, do you guys have an answer for that?
I don't know. I've not
Like,
actually.
sort of the same as make local, but I'm not sure.
Where is unlink?
Is it in the right click from the outliner.
Right click on here. Oh, unlink.
Unlink.
Well, let's try it on the master collection. Boom, it's gone.
Oh yeah, so it's the opposite.
I think that just because it's a linked file.
That makes sense. Yeah, yeah.
If it's a linked file from another file, then it just unlinks it, so it's no longer in this scene.
So what's interesting about that? Let me undo. Is it going to break Blender? Let's see. Okay, you can go back. So can you unlink on a lower level? Can I unlink the rig only?
Yes.
So that would be the purpose of an unlink, in my opinion. Like you can unlink certain things, but other things still remain linked. Does that make sense? So if you're not an animator, you don't want to bring the rig in, you just want to bring the model in. You can unlink the collections that you don't want in.
I think another use for it as well, it would be if you're linking in loads of different objects, different characters into a bigger scene, and then you change your mind and think, oh, well, I've got too many of those trees. I want fir trees instead of oak trees or something, and you change your mind and think, oh, I'll bring in the fir trees. You're no longer using the oak tree, so you just want to unlink it and get it out of the file.
Or maybe you like the trunk of one tree and you like the branches of another tree. You can unlink down what you want.
Yeah.
Yeah, characters with lots of props. So you could bring a character in and he has a collection of all these props, and you unlink the props you don't need. That's a great example.
What would
Pro
be the
silent odor.
difference between unlinking an object and deleting it then?
So when you unlink, I don't think the objects become orphan data. Oh yeah, it does. Look at that. Interesting. I don't know. That's a good question, Smacky.
Yeah, like you, I've not had a lot of experience of that. I usually, it's just maybe a character you link into the file and you animate, and that's about as far as I go.
Yeah, I can't say I've done a whole ton of unlinking, but what's interesting is when you unlink, it actually protects the data. It gives it a fake user. It just throws it into the orphan collection, so it's no longer linked to the scene. The main scene collection. So I guess I'll talk code just for a second because I code add-ons. When you make an object through Python, I know this is going to sound boring. You can create something, and it gets created in Blender, but actually comes in as an orphan. And it stays an orphan until you actually link it to Blender's scenes. It can be the main scene or to, or you link it to like a collection, I'm sorry. So it can be linked to the scene collection, or you can link it to a different collection. Once it's linked to a collection, it technically has a user. Until you do that, though, it's considered an object without a user. So the only way to keep it in your blend file is to either give it a fake user by clicking on the shield icon, or linking it into a collection. So that unlink button, what it sounds like it's doing to me is it doesn't delete the object, it gives it a fake user and it removes it from the collections that are in the scene. So it's here in the file still, like it's taking up memory when you save the file, but it's not actually loading the scene or loading the viewport. That's my understanding, at least.
That makes sense.
Does that help, Sheila, Martin?
Yeah, Martin says it makes sense.
Cool. Excellent. Okay, that's a win. But my use case with library overrides, we typically just do it from like the collection level. So when we link the thing in, we just go to the object and do the main library override and just do a make there. And I'll be honest, I have not done a whole lot of the resetting and clearing. So I'm sure that they're probably somewhat self-explanatory when they're needed. Just resetting the overrides to their linked references. And I'm not sure what that one does. The only way to find out, though, is to play, right?
Exactly.
The library overrides in there is the relations, and that also has a library override. What's the difference?
I don't know that answer, Spiky.
It's always easy to ask difficult questions.
That's right. Yeah. What's the difference between relations and the standard library override? That's a good question.
I usually use that one. Relations.
You do relations.
Yeah.
I usually just do this one.
I'm not sure what the difference
They're
is
just in
though.
different places according to silent odor. Maybe one will override children as well. So the hierarchy dependencies. So if something has children, it will override the children.
Is it?
I don't know. I don't know. I guess I don't have a model that would cause that to happen, I guess.
I'm not sure if one's the old version and the one you use is the new version.
Yeah, I'll have to research that some more.
Because the relations has been there for a long time. That library override, I think, hasn't been there very long. I don't think. Maybe they're switching over. Maybe that's the old one that I use still. And because I know there's been a lot of changes on that recently, and they just start phasing it out.
Yeah, that might be the case. One of them might just start to become deprecated, and it'll be out in the next few versions of Blender. But I don't know. That's a very good question.
We'll have to research that.
Yep. That's my experience and knowledge with library overrides to date, though. We use it quite a bit, so we can link in the character, make changes to the master file, and then go back to my master file now that we're talking about it, and Control Z. Yeah, save, and then we can reload here. Save this and revert. He's all back to normal. Look at that. But I can keep all the other changes in this file, and it's not going to mess with my master file. But that's the benefit that I'm using them for, at least.
Okay, that makes sense.
I know Wardred had some questions about. I think we answered one of them. So the question that he had related to the asset library and the fact that files in the asset library, asking if they can use relative paths. Isn't that right, Wardred?
I think so, yeah, because you're using different systems.
And this is actually a known Blender limitation that I went to the forums on the Blender Dev website where they post bugs and things, and it was posted about that relative paths weren't working, and the response came back that there were some issues, and I didn't read too far into all the issues, but there was some explanation as to why they couldn't figure it out for everybody. And basically, relative paths for assets is not supported in Blender yet. So if you're going to use an asset from the asset library, you have to have an absolute path, which if you're on a Windows system, Windows uses drives for the starting point, whereas in Mac, you don't use drives. And so trying to open like an asset path between OSs is a little bit more difficult when working with the asset library.
Can you not use a portable hard drive or a thumb drive or something and save that file on there and then take that with you? Could you not? Because I know you can open a Blender file, save it in Windows and open it on OS.
Yeah, so the only, I guess I'll share my use case that I haven't tried this because I don't have a Mac that supports this version of Blender anymore. Mine only supports 2.79 because the graphics card is too old. But I did find that I can use, at least for Mac, I haven't tried Linux, but Mac, you can actually add in a network location over an IP address, and then in Windows you create a new user. And I'll show what that looks like on my system. So on my desktop, I have with my iPad, I created an account specifically for my iPad, and there's a folder that I share with that account from my regular daily account. and I can throw any file inside of this folder, and my iPad can actually log into the account through the Files app, and the Mac should be able to do the same. You just go in through an IP address, and I can access files this way. It's kind of like Google Drive in a way.
Yeah, that's what I used to. That's the way I used to do it.
But I haven't tried that with the asset browser. I wanted to try it. I just don't have an OS that can support Blender.
Yeah.
From my end. But I know that for my iPad, I can share data between my two devices and other files besides Blender, and it shares just fine. I use my Affinity programs a lot between my iPad and my computer. Google Drive is a good option, though. Yeah. So Google Drive does support the slashes, and that's probably a good way to go. I know that we're using Google Drive for our Bucky rig, but he's not in the asset browser. So, but the original question had to be about the relative paths, and those are not supported by Blender yet. So it's going to be the full source path.
Yeah, I think going through Kent's latest course, Cubicity, where he uses the asset library, I'm beginning to think that you have to download the asset library onto your local hard drive to use the assets. Is that right?
Yeah, so that's a good question. We probably ought to talk to Ken about that. I imagine that the repository is probably not going to be a place that you're going to be pointing to, so you'll most likely be downloading the asset library.
Because he's mentioned that in his course about downloading the current version from the site and then using that as your starting point.
That's right.
So I imagine that you have to have the latest version of the asset library downloaded. You can then use any of those assets in your... I don't think you can do it via Google Drive or anything like that, but I'm not 100% sure.
I think if Kent places it on some central server that's Google Drive-ish related, all you have to do is add that location. You can point to the Google Drive. Like I can add an asset library path here, and I can point to Google Drive from my computer. And I can even point into Bucky's folder, like, and add that as an asset library. And that will now be another library that I have. So as long as there's a single repository where all the assets are, it should be able to update just fine. That was the whole point of an asset library, is you shouldn't have to download. We'll have to talk that over with Kent and see what his vision is for that.
Yeah, I think that the problem was that everyone then needs to have access to Google Drive, rather than downloading. Well, it may be in the future that he decides to put it on Google Drive or somewhere else, that because it might get so big that downloading the files could take hours.
Yep. Yeah, that's something we probably ought to just find out. I would say that if people are submitting exercises, it would be nice to have a single place where everybody can go to grab the asset library. But the easiest way to do it, I guess, is just to have people download the asset library and just point to it. So for those of you who've never used the asset library, you can go to Edit and Preferences. And inside of Preferences, there's a File Path section, and then there's Asset Libraries. And typically there is like a default one, I believe, that Blender comes with.
Yeah.
And it's like C, like your user, and then Documents folder. And that's typically the first library, but all you have to do is you can click the plus icon and you can add another library, or you can delete these libraries by clicking the X icon. And if you want to have something show up inside that library, you just need to move a blend file into that path and have assets that are marked. So for the panels course that's coming out, I've done that. I've got these comics, like the comic standard sizing. And all I have to do is save more files into that path where these comics are for all my 2D stuff, and then that'll be in my 2D library. So I don't have to worry about a giant, massive library that has everything across every type of theme. You can have it nice and organized between your libraries. You just select one and your assets change.
Yeah, so you can have your your assets for different things. Like you said with the 2D, you'd use a different library.
Yep. And linking works in the asset library as well. So you can have link instead, and notice how it brings in that cool little empty object. It's got the little collection icon, even though it's not a collection. It's just holding the collection. Then you can reset the position, place it where you need. So these are things that are going to be part of the assemble course. And I think asset libraries are actually really cool. I'm just getting into using them, but they do have a limitation. Like Wardred said, you have to use a non-relative path. It's going to be a full absolute path. So the assemble course is not by me. I'm creating assets as I follow the course because we do course review, and so I was creating stuff while I was watching.
Yeah, we've I think there's what 3 courses coming out soon.
Yeah, we've had a lot of homework this past 2 months.
Yeah,
reviewing all the courses that are coming. All the instructors are going to hit you guys with some cool courses all at once.
Yeah, I think all 3 of them are before the end of the year.
That's right.
So 3 months, 3 courses.
I'll stop sharing that now.
And they're all good courses as well. We've got some good stuff coming up.
Yeah, and it's very different courses too. You have a whole panels is coming out, which is an entire 2D workflow that's going to teach you how to even make a comic book, which I think is just amazing.
Oh yeah, that's so good.
And this is, I don't know about you guys, Spiky, have you felt this way? Like when Blender 2.8 came out, Grease Pencil wasn't new. It had existed for a while, right? They just put a lot of work into it.
It was new in 2.8, yeah.
Oh, it was new in 2.8? I thought it still existed in 2.79. It just didn't have as much functionality.
It was only for making, what in 2.8 and further on is called annotations. It used to be the Grease Pencil.
Oh, that's right, okay.
Grease Pencil became something new with an old name.
Yeah.
So we had Grease Pencil, but it was actually what's now annotations.
Yeah, but Grease Pencil has a lot more functionality than annotations ever had.
Yeah,
right?
Definitely, it's completely different. It's an object and it has so much potential.
There's
I was always afraid of using it because it seemed so complex and
it was just
so
so
much
foreign, right?
possibilities.
Yeah.
But after seeing this panels, it is wow.
I like the
It's really
speed lines and things like that are pretty cool.
Yeah,
The way he creates those, and
of course.
it's it's not just drawing, is it? Now it modifies and everything on Grease Pencil.
Yeah, that's the cool thing. So Grease Pencil objects can have modifiers, and you can create really cool effects and modify the Grease Pencil data without ever destructively affecting it.
Exactly. And
then
Paul's comic book, the fence panels, the broken fence, it just looks 3D. It like jumps out at you on the screen.
yeah,
It looks so good. It doesn't just look 2D. It looks 3D, which is great stuff.
yep. I think it's been a long-awaited feature for CG Cookie to release something that along those lines, and I think Paul's gonna knock some socks off people. Then we have Assemble coming out, which is the Geometry Nodes course.
Yeah, that's another one that's been a long time coming, I think. But it was so unstable for a while. There's so many work being done with geometry nodes that you couldn't really make a proper course until now.
Well, it's because it kept breaking, right?
Yeah.
Every time they came out with a new version of Blender, Geometry Nodes broke on old files.
Well, it doesn't break, but I'm using 3.4 and there's already a bunch of new nodes, nodes that have been removed and changed, and it's amazing.
Yeah, when I first started, when it first come out, and I was going through, there's lots of YouTube courses coming out and saying, "Oh, geometry nodes," and there's very little you could actually do with it. It was no different to using the particle system, really. You could add some trees, and you could add some rocks, and you can add on a plane or something, but you can not like you can do now. It's completely
Yeah.
different.
I think Arendelle, Aaron Woodford, I think is his name. He
Avondale, Woodford.
Yes, he is amazing with geometry nodes. In fact, he got on the Blender splash screen in, was it 3.2.9 or 3.1? He had the flower scene that was the splash screen.
Yeah, I remember
Basket of
that.
flowers. That was, I believe, that was all done with geometry nodes. If I'm not
Really?
mistaken.
There was some manual modeling, but
There was some manual modeling. Okay.
like flower leaves,
Sure. Yeah.
but most was geometry nodes.
Yeah. So there's a lot that can be done. And I mean, Jonathan talks about in the course, there are certain things you can do with geometry nodes, and it does it really well, but it doesn't replace a good mesh modeling understanding of certain things that you can only do in mesh modeling. I mean, you could probably do it in geometry nodes, but it would take such a complex graph. It wouldn't
Yeah,
be worth the time.
yeah,
So
Yeah, we
there's
can do it.
pros and cons to both workflows, right?
You can do it, but it's not worth it.
It's an
But
exercise.
It will probably be in a few years' time.
Yeah, for
There
sure.
will
yeah.
be not geometry nodes, but there will be modeling with nodes, for sure.
All nodes. Power of nods, as they say.
Yeah, I think Audrey's just posted. I think somebody modelled a character with geometry nodes. I think that's just crazy.
Yeah.
But there are people that model a character with shader nodes.
Yeah, well, yeah, for sure.
Yeah, yeah,
Nodevember always
completely
amazes me.
ridiculous.
yeah. Can't you do any of that then, Spikey? I thought you'd have been able to do all that.
Well, when the Pokemon challenge was, I started making the Pokemon logo with shader nodes.
Did you?
I got 2 letters. So I knew
Yeah.
I could do it, but it's so much work. But
Yes.
if I do the first 2 letters, I can do the whole logo.
Yeah.
If you want, I
Um,
can show it.
But November always surprises me at what people can do in that.
Yes. Yeah, November, I love watching November.
Yeah.
I'm not that good. But I do like watching people make cool things. Asset library can do node graphs too now, so geometry node libraries will definitely be a thing. Ooh, that's good to know. Thanks. Thanks, Pro Silent Odor. That's really cool.
That is
So that'll
cool.
actually come in handy for things like the new Assemble course coming out. Because you can build, you know, like something for a theme park and then throw that graph into as an asset.
Yeah, along with all
It
your
can stay as a modifier, right? You don't have to apply it. That's cool.
and the other one is Cubicity that's coming. I think that's November, beginning of November. I think that's due.
Yeah, I hope so. I'm
And that-
excited for that one.
I've been a guinea pig for that one.
Yeah, you want to talk about that a little bit, Adrian? Just for a little tease about Cubicity?
Yeah, shall I share my assets that I've made?
Yeah.
Let me just open my file. Where is it gone? Okay, let me share my screen. Okay, you got that? Okay, so what I've got here is my delivery truck because in the course, Kent's son likes playing with parcels and delivering parcels to different people in his family, and he pops into his room while he's recording a video, and Kent's left it in the video. So I built this little truck as part of one of the assets for Cubicity. And one thing about Cubicity, we can't use image textures, so everything has to be mesh. So if I go into the mesh on here, we go into edit mode, and let me select that. On here you got that box and the letters and everything. There's no image textures, it's all mesh models, mesh modeling. So you can see that box on the side of the truck is just a plane basically that's been shaped into to look like a 3D box. So all those,
and then you've just got solid materials on the plane, right? If you can go to material preview, you can show the materials that are assigned there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it just assigning different colours to different parts of the box to make it look 3D. So there's a bit of shadow on this side and light on the top, and 3 different sort of shades of brown. So that's the delivery truck, which is fun. We have a coffee shop sign, and all these, let me go to a night scene and turn on, so my microphone didn't know I have to tilt my head. We've got the admission shader, so if I turn that on, I think 20 was the, why is that not working? Working on that, yeah. See the lights come on. Oh, it's not working on there. It should have been working on that as well. The background light, this section here, the lights come on and the light shines through the sign. Again, this
look cool.
This logo I've had to make that from mesh modeling as well. That's no texture, that's mesh as well. So we'll go into edit mode on that. You can see that's all, you can't really see it very well, but if I grab that, you can see that's all that is just mesh.
So that's not to say that you couldn't do something like make a font object, a text object, and then convert it into a mesh object, right?
Yeah, as long as it needs to be in the finished asset, it needs to be all mesh. How you do that? I mean, obviously this was text, just a normal text object converted to a mesh.
Yep.
What else we got? We have a building. This is a theatre.
Oh wow, look at that.
I was going to do a theatre sign up here somewhere as well that attaches to the wall, big long sign, but I never got around to doing that because Kent needed the file to assimilate it and see how test his assimilation process. Let's go back to daylight, turn that off. This took a bit of time getting all this writing on here, because I had to curve it around the sign. So I just used a
Curve modifier for the win.
no, for the what do you call it? I can't remember what I use now.
Shrink wrap.
Shrink wrap. That's the one. That
Okay.
one. But that's a bit temperamental, and you have to get the sizing right and everything. Otherwise, it sticks to the wrong place, and So that was a bit of a pain. And we got a VIP entrance here for all the VIPs to. There a red carpet needs to roll out from there. This is our entrance. This is the punter's entrance. And then
that's really cool.
And then I've got the logo there as well, which Kent has included in the or will be including in the file for anyone to use. That's just that logo, which Kent said it put in the download file, so anyone can add that to any of their. Like I've used it on a coffee shop sign. You know, it can be used on a dustbin or a telephone box or something like that.
So here's a question. If he's including things like this to be used with other things in the scene, is that a good time to use the linked feature? Or do you need to append that file into your own?
Well, he goes through that in the course, doesn't he?
Okay, cool.
So
I haven't gotten that far in the review.
When you download the it's on version 1 at the moment, download the asset library, you can then use the assets from there. And he does talk about using linking rather than using the let me open that and you'll see.
So the only reason why I ask is if somebody is generating their own assets and they have linked assets from the library inside of their asset, I could see there being problems when they submit it, that it's using a absolute path, or
So
it's referencing something that's not it's not accessible anymore because it was on their computer.
Yeah, this is
Does that make sense?
the current version 1 file that's part of the course. Up here you've got append, link append or append reuse data. He does talk about this and says to use linked, and he goes into detail reasons why. Okay. So then you can just click and grab and add that to your scene. It takes a bit of time to load. There you go. And he does talk about that using linked files. I can't remember what he said about it, but while we was watching the course, obviously we're not studying how to do things. We're more looking in for little mistakes or things that he says wrong, or so not going into too much detail on what's actually. I've had to watch some of it again to actually understand what I had to do for that file. And that's it. That's all I've got. But it's fun. It's a lot of fun making those assets and following the course. I'm sure that's going to be a great popular course.
Oh yeah, for sure. It's a very approachable course because it covers topics for both beginners, intermediate, and advanced users.
Exactly.
It's still like it's a low poly workflow still. Like the cars are low poly. The buildings are fairly low poly, and the buildings are modular. Like everything in the workflow is modular, which is a little bit more of an intermediate and advanced technique.
Yeah, so you can duplicate an object, and you can see you get different variations in the color as well. That's what he's gone through. See, you get a different color brick every time you duplicate an object, so it doesn't look exactly the same, which is really cool. And he goes through how to set that up in the course.
That's really cool.
But it's great fun to follow it. Have you not watched that course yet then, Sean?
I've been watching it, but I because I have a full-time job.
Yeah, but there's so many courses coming out that we've had to review them all and go through them all.
All of panels as my primary review. And panels is just amazing. I don't have enough to share from my own side, but just on the review side, I've really fallen in love with panels. I've gotten a little bit done on assemble and a little bit on I've gotten to end of chapter 2 on Cubicity.
Yeah. But I
How about you,
really
Spiky?
Cubicity and Assemble I've watched completely, and Panels I still have to watch some at the end, but all three courses are really great. Very entertaining, you learn so much. It's great.
Yeah, they're our quality courses. They are focusing more on quality than quantity at the moment,
Yes.
which is a good thing, I think. Even though might take 6 to 8 months to actually, go through them and record the whole course. It's
And then
worthwhile
Blender's
in my
changed
opinion.
already.
Sorry.
Blender's changed 3 times by the time the course
Exactly.
releases.
Yeah.
Which, especially for geometry nodes, is of course
Yeah.
a problem.
Okay. Anything else? Omar's not here, is he? No.
Yeah, Warda did make a comment. He said that he thinks linking saves memory. Does anybody want to talk about that? Versus appending from the asset library?
Yeah, I think so because you. I mean, I'm not an expert on linking, but I think because the data is linked, you do save a bit of memory because you're reusing data from another file. But I'm not a technical guru, so I wouldn't know how that works.
Can you talk to that, Spiky?
I think it's just a link. So it tells in Blender there is like a small line of text saying, here's where you get your data from.
Yeah.
And it's not the data itself. So if it would be a default cube, and you'd link that in, you'd probably have used more memory than not linking it in. Because the default cube only has 8 vertices and more information, but the link would probably cost, well, more. Maybe not, but... And if you have a huge asset or something, then, yeah, linking would be a lot cheaper.
Yeah, my understanding... Go ahead.
Linking a cube would cost almost the same as linking a whole building. I
Yes.
think, but I'm not sure.
Yeah, there's some overhead with linking. I don't know the statistics on when it's beneficial versus not beneficial, but if you have a fairly high poly asset, I know that if you made 20 copies of that asset in your blend file, just duplicated them, it would slow down the file a lot more than if you just instanced 20 copies of that file. Right?
Yeah, of course. Because you only change the location and maybe the scale
Yep.
of the object, but not the data actually. What the file, the list which says where all the vertices are. You only have that once.
You only have to worry about it once. Like the computer only has to load it once, and then it just displays that content in a different size, shape, like different size of rotation. So it only has to do the calculation about the data once, and then it can just draw it to the screen as many times as it wants.
It does have to do more than one calculation, especially if it renders. And actually, if it shows it in the 3D viewport, you're already rendering.
Yeah,
So
but it doesn't
has
have to deal
do
with
the rendering for each object, no matter if the data is linked.
Yeah, it has to render them still, but it doesn't have to worry about the data behind each instance, if that makes sense.
But it has one
Right.
list. It says
Yeah,
one
one
list
list.
with where all the vertices are, and uses that 20 times. And if they were not linked, then you'd have 20 lists. So that's a lot more.
Yeah. Even though, so that's something that's really cool I haven't seen yet though. Even though you're linking in that building that Adrian was showing, he duplicates the linked object and the color changes still. I think that's awesome. That's a perfect use of optimizing a linked file.
Yeah, it's a really neat trick.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because if you link data, you can, if you make a linked copy of something, then it is its own object, and you can have random color per object.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's a different object, but it uses the same vertices, vertex positions, but it can use a random color or any random value per object.
That's a cool usage of it.
I like the fact that you can use the same material for different objects, but still get different colours by using vertex colours and using the.
It's the same principle.
Yeah.
You use the random color option.
Yeah. But it is really good. I learned quite a bit from that course actually, going through that. Some new stuff.
There's always something to learn in Blender.
Exactly.
Such a big program.
Yeah. I think Waldred's added a few comments here. He said something about the lettering. Characters, did you use curves to trace the fonts? The fonts, the letters are just adding a text object. Write your text and then you just convert it to a mesh. That's simple. I mean, you could clean it up a bit because it's quite messy, the geometry, but else with this course you don't really need to have perfect geometry for that kind of thing. When I gave it to Ken, he said you could clean it up a little bit, but it doesn't really matter. You know, it's not having triangles and that is not a big deal. What else? Shrink wrap.
Wondered asked about messing with lettering. Says he hasn't messed with that much.
Yeah.
Did you want to see just using the text objects in Blender real quick before we finish? Ordered? Okay. We have time to share that real quick?
Yeah, sure.
The text has come, the fonts have become a lot better now in the latest version.
Yeah.
The support for fonts. Yeah. Let me.
Arabic and things in Korean.
I've been downloading some different fonts as well to add to use. The fonts I use are not the default Windows fonts. Although
Yeah, so that's what I was going to share. So in Blender, when you load in, you go to Shift A. Let me turn screencast keys on. So Shift A on your add menu, or you can come up here and you can add in a text object. And I believe Spiky can correct me on this. Text objects are very similar to curves.
They are curves in a way.
Yeah, they just have a couple different data properties that curves don't have, like the ability to adjust font. And if you go to the data properties on a text object, the font section is a section that's really handy. And you've got 4 different styles that you can load a font through, and Blender font, the B font regular is the default font that comes with Blender. But if you want to bring a different font in, you can load in Windows fonts. So I've got like my Windows fonts, which is just C, Windows, and then fonts. You can access all fonts within Windows. Or you can install your own fonts from the web. So I've got my app data where I've installed fonts coming from. So this is something I did learn though. When I installed my fonts, at least for me on Windows, the installed fonts had a different path. And it was, I know we shared a little bit about app data in the first stream on my file explorer. So I just created a font this week actually, and it's David's here. I may have deleted it. It looks like it's gone now. There we go. So I drew this font on my iPad on an app, and then I installed it into Windows. And so in Windows, you just right-click and you can open with the Windows Font Viewer, and it gives you the option to install. and it will install to the OS. And I believe Mac is similar. You can install fonts in just about any OS. I just don't know the process for installing them.
If you right click on the font again, and then you should have, oh mine it says install. It says once you download it, you get a zip file. You unzip the file, and then right click on the font, and it says install or install for all users.
Yeah, so I'm on Windows 11. Are you on Windows 11?
No, I'm on 10.
Windows 11, they decided to minimize what's shown, so you can click on show more options.
Right.
And if you do show more options, you can do install for all users.
If you do install for all users, install will only allow you to use it on Windows, like Word and things like that. If you do it all users, it then comes up in the Blender file as well.
Oh, okay. Well, let me try that real quick. Do install for all users, and let's go back to the Blender.
If you go
let's
to
go to my standard Windows fonts, I should be able to search up here. Type in, yeah, Bucky. There we go.
That installs it for all programs. It says all users, but it's actually all programs. Otherwise,
oh, cool.
The standard install is only for the Windows programs, like
yeah.
Word,
So if you didn't
Word
do
and
that, let's say you did install a font and you didn't do it that way, you can do %sign app data, and then %sign, and that will take you to your local app data for your user. And then inside of here, I've got the path saved. Let me go full screen on this. So it's local Microsoft Windows fonts.
Yeah.
So roaming.
I will say though, the fonts menu or folder may actually be hidden. You might have to unhide it.
Yeah. So we got app data, local Microsoft. Microsoft is probably hidden. I guess I could just copy this and put it in my browser. But yeah, so install for all users, that's a much better. Thanks for that tip, Adrian. So when I install mine for my single user, they end up here. So I've got quite a few different fonts. I've got like Super Mario, Poppins, Montserrat. And then I've got some custom ones that I've written up on my own. So I have my own Blanche SB font. And you can load these. We'll go back to Blender now. You can load these once they're installed. So we'll just do the... back to this font here. Type in Bucky, and when you open the font, now all the text changes to that font style.
Yeah.
And when you have two options for text. You have object mode and edit mode. And edit mode lets you come in and start typing things out. And when you hit enter, it will add another line. And then you hit tab to get back into regular object mode. There are more options for using bold font, italic font, and bold and italic font. And you have to have a font that actually supports this, as far as I understand, in order for it to load. But I usually just use regular personally. Do you guys have experience with these ones?
Yeah, I just use regular and I load the font, whichever one I want to use, into there. I don't use the others.
Oh, go ahead, Spikey.
I think you can use any font in bold or italic. It doesn't have to be bold or italic, but I'm not completely sure.
So let's
Yeah, I'll
bring in
take
a different one. Now, how do I tell it to use one over the other while I'm in edit mode?
I think you've got to, I believe in Windows you press Control B. So if you highlight...
So Control I will do it. Okay, it's right here actually. So you've got the toggle buttons here.
Yeah, but you can, while you're in there, you can also do Control B or Control I for italic.
Yep. So if I did Control B while in edit mode over highlighted font, it will make it take the font from the bold. If I do Control I and Control B separately, it will make it take from this location. So I can come in and load a different font for here.
Yeah, or you can just select the... Mind you, they're not all there, are they? You haven't got a bold and an italic.
So this one's italic.
I'm not sure what the
These
shortcut
ones
is
can
for
be
that.
bold. We'll do blocks for this one just for fun. And now I've got like a combination of all my fonts, which is a cool feature. I mean, you can like pick between the fonts that you want for each one of these scenarios. And then, similar to what Curves had, you can offset your font.
If
Give
you
it just a little
do,
bit more of an offset.
extrude's a good one.
Extrude is a really good one. So extrude will bring your font up and down. And then you can use a taper. I believe these are curves. It's like to cause the font to taper. And I haven't played with those much.
No, I haven't
But,
used that much. Bevel as
you can
well.
do, you can do beveling on the edges. And set the bevel resolution, so if you don't want that many pieces on the bevel, you could just do like a one-time bevel. And then the transforming is kind of cool. So you can set the size, you can set the shear effect. So let's go to the top view for that. Text on curve. I believe if you add in a curve, like a Bezier curve, and you do text on curve, let's see.
I think this goes by the origin point, doesn't it? I think.
I believe so.
So if you,
Why is it offset? I have to Alt G on this. There we go. There we go. So they need to share the same origin point basically, but now it will follow the curve. And then there's kerning, like there's a whole bunch of things. There's character spacing, there's word spacing, and these weren't as many options in previous versions of Blender. I believe there was even kerning. Kerning may be in edit mode though. So you can highlight, and then I believe it's in text, and then there's kerning options as well. So Alt right arrow and Alt left arrow. You can increase the kerning on specific characters if you want. So all this to say is there's lots of options to use your curves. And I don't even know them all personally, but you have offsets as well. So now I can offset along my curve. And you're still technically following the curve. But the offset works regardless of moving it. Do you guys have anything else you want to share though? You can obviously set your justification. The top, center, middle.
Waldrich just said about nice for engraved objects like tombstones. I've used that before, where you can use it as an engraving. So you can use it. It's like you can use a modifier, a boolean.
Yeah. So.
Can't use that in his tombstone.
You can use the
tutorial.
text. Yeah, I used it on a tombstone before. You can use a boolean and then engrave that into the surface.
Do you have to convert it to a mesh first?
I don't think so.
Looks like I don't have objects that I can boolean.
Yeah, it must be then. You must have to convert it.
So yeah, so let's say I'm done with my curve, like I have a curve that I want, or a text object that I want, and I want to be able to convert it now to a mesh. You can go to Object, and it is down here on Convert, and you can convert it to a mesh. But you can also convert, this is something cool that I learned, is you can convert text into grease pencil as well. So you don't need to draw out text in grease pencil. Now that I've converted this to mesh, it's a mesh object. And if you want to clean up these spaces, you can. I think all you have to do is select one of them, and then Shift G to select similar. And I believe it's coplanar. And then dissolve faces. Oh, it didn't do it for all the islands. I did it for most of them. you could, I guess, is there a better way to do that, Spiky? To clean up the
Manual.
conversion?
It's manual work, and because there's a hole in the O, it can't dissolve.
Ah, okay. Yeah, because it's a circle, right? And the face needs to have, it can't go around in a loop with one single normal. But like the C could, because it's not a full loop. But now that it's a mesh object, you can set that, and then we can do intersection.
You can hide the font in the outliner.
So I like to go to the object properties and change the viewport display and just change it to wire. That way I can kind of see it, but I can see
the effect.
If I need to bring it back, I'm at least not seeing everything. And then set this modifier to exact instead. Oh man, I didn't like the exact. I probably got a little bit too fancy with my font.
Yeah, I think that it does help to clean up the mesh a bit when you're using it as a boolean.
But that doesn't look too bad for a lot of these. It's a nice little curvature on the boolean.
Yeah.
Sometimes you can just move it along the Z direction and it brings things back a little bit.
I think I did see somewhere that the scale, if you scale it up and then use the scale in the text object, it can help with that as well. But
yeah, there'll be a little bit of cleanup.
But that would have been before you converted it. You can scale it up in the viewport and then use the text object in the menus, the options that you showed, and scale it back down there, and it does help clean it up, make it a lot cleaner.
Let's see. So you're talking about, let's see if I can go back far enough. Oh. I don't think I can go back that far. That's okay.
No, I think you've gone too far.
Decimate modifier is planar. Okay, yeah, we can do bit decimate as well. That might be a way to go. But in a modifier, we do decimate, planar decimation. Should we see if that works? Let's see. Yeah, it did a pretty good job. Thanks, Martin. Yeah, so you've got to get something to basically cut off that loop. So you need at least one edge cutting in. Welcome, Thibault. That's a good cleanup, but you probably want to clean up a little bit more. I mean, you got a little bit of cleanup to do here. It looks like this face probably just needs a cut in.
I'd probably just delete the face and just fill it manually.
Delete
just
the face
select the edge.
We get around the perimeter. Looks like we don't have a full perimeter. So it would require a little bit more cleanup on this one. You got a couple of things that aren't looking anymore. So anywho, hopefully that helps. So I'm probably just wasting people's time just filling up this tea. Hopefully that helps. Just a little bit more information about text objects. They're very much like curves, and they do work with curves as well to make them follow along a path. That's actually really handy, especially for UI design or things that are inside your scene that need to have a font going around something. Curves are a really good way to use that because you don't need to worry about shrink wrap at that point.
Yeah. Okay. I think, unless you want to add anything else, any more questions? Oh, just we say that.
Mastar wants to ask what issues a Blender artist is facing when he works with someone who is using another. Oh, that's right. We did see this as well. So what to do with people who are using, like in a work group, who are using other programs?
Yes.
I have no idea.
Do you know the answer,
If maybe
Sean?
it's probably. I mean, there are some limitations which Martin already mentioned, like the bendy bones. Some modifiers maybe. All the shading will have problems probably. Textures, not the textures, but shaders are different. And some modifiers.
I
I'm
think
not sure what all the problems. You probably have to know both softwares to see where
which
it
works with
works
which, yeah.
and where there are differences.
Yeah.
So I know,
It's always a limitation. I think.
yeah, I think that's going to be the same. I mean, let's just talk about other softwares, right? So Google has a version of their Excel sheet, right, or their Cell sheet. And then you have Microsoft that has their own version of Excel. And they both do kind of the same thing, but not everything is in one and the other. So you're going to lose some functionality transferring between programs. Like you may have a special kind of formula or function that's allowed that's default in Microsoft Excel. And when you load it into Google Sheets, that formula may not be present. It's built in intrinsically. And the same goes for 3D modeling softwares. And that's not just Blender specific, it's across all 3D programs. So
But
the things that typically break that I've seen and personally worked with in the pipelines is shaders typically break because everybody does their own material shading calculations a little bit differently. But the texture workflow, if you make textures and UVs, that seems to transfer across the board in my understanding. I own ZBrush, and that's typically what I see is people doing UVs and texturing, and then that will transfer across. But a lot of programs actually have helper programs that will send their model from one program to another. So ZBrush has a GoZ and GoB. You can take a model and work with it in ZBrush, and then it will import into Blender, and it'll seamlessly go back and forth. But things do get lost along the way. So modifier stacks, that's a Blender only typical thing. ZBrush does stuff slightly different on the modifier realm. Lighting information changes a little bit. Armatures and things. Their bendy bones is probably a Blender only thing, I would think. I haven't heard of bendy bones. Yeah. But going to game engines and things, typical file formats will change. So blend files don't open up in game engines. Blend file's not going to open up in another 3D software typically, unless there's an importer that's worked for it. But I typically use FBX or GLTF for my models that I'm transferring between programs, unless there's a helper program like in my ZBrush program.
Did you try USD?
I have used USD a little bit. I just don't have enough experience with it. I haven't used it that much. I do know that FBX is not officially, I think, is it Adobe that owns the FBX format?
Yeah.
So
It
it's,
changes it constantly. And
yeah,
it's
they
not
change it
open source,
constantly.
It's horrible.
It's not open source. So Blender has FBX support, but it's not true Adobe FBX. Or Autodesk. Maybe it's Autodesk. Yeah, so the open source ones are typically supported across a lot of programs. USD, I think, is open source. Isn't that right, Spiky?
Yep.
And GLTF, I think, is open source as well.
As far as I know. But I never import. I only use Blender, so I don't
Yeah.
really know about import and export.
Yeah, that's my experience personally. I use ZBrush and Blender, and I'm able to go between those softwares just fine. But Maya to Blender, there are some. I mean, there's some stuff that people use, but other than exporting as a file format that's supported between both programs, that's typically what I look for. Is what is a supported file format between both programs.
yeah, I'm like
Does that help,
Spiky.
Matt Start?
I'm like Spiky. I just use Blender. I did try and use Maya once a long time ago, and I found it so difficult to learn because there was no information out there. There's no, I mean, it's going back 15 years, and there was no tutorials or nothing to help you learn Maya. Nothing like there is with Blender.
Yeah, I have friends who still use Maya. Some of my clients use it just in side client freelance gigs. And I mean, you like what you're used to. It's just another tool in the toolbox, in my opinion. Blender does certain things great, and Blender does not do certain things great. It'll take 10 clicks in Blender, and another program it takes 1 click. But then that program can't do video editing, right? I mean, everybody's got trade-offs.
Yeah.
There's no perfect software.
Rostech says he has Maya at school, and it's not fun to use, to say the least. Okay.
Yeah, I found it quite difficult. I gave up with it. And that's when Blender come along. And it's been Blender ever since.
Yeah, but I mean, if you are working with people who are using other programs, the best thing to do is just communication and expectations of what your software allows and what theirs allows, and trying to figure out the pathway from there. Because if your other people in your group are using Maya, sending them a blend file is not going to work, right? So what format will Maya support? Because I'm working in Blender, like get those communication paths and like the workflow set up for your group. That's a pretty common thing though across companies, and even within certain studios. Using different software is going to be a thing that's coming up. It's just working with your team to figure out what is the structure. Typically there's a project manager who sets requirements of what things need to be in what formats.
Yeah, I think a lot of the time it's like one person will do the modelling and they complete the model in one program and then pass it on to someone else that use a different program. But it has to be ready for that person to use in the other program.
And they'll set the requirement typically, like I need it in this format. And my understanding is Blender can typically give what you need, enough to get from point A to point B.
So if you're going to model a character, you'd finish modelling it in Blender before you then pass it on to the person that's going to texture it, maybe in another program.
Yeah, but just be prepared that there may be some things that don't transfer, so you may need to adjust your workflow accordingly.
Modeling is usually quite easy to export and import, but problem is something changed.
Yeah, if you're that's the point. If you're modeling in Blender and you're using a lot of modifiers, and then somebody else wants to carry on modeling in another program, and then you want to bring it back and carry on modeling in Blender and swap in between, I don't think you'd work like that. I think we'd finish in one program, the modeling, and then move on.
If later on they want to change something, they want something changed in your character or in the model, you'd have to.
Yeah, but that's where you
export it.
You export it as a file that is, like you said, the open source files that you can then bring it backwards and forwards.
And if you stay in Blender, you can just link it.
Exactly. Just use Blender. That's the short answer.
Yeah, so ProSilenoder does make a good point. On some of the export options, there is the ability to apply modifiers on export. So you can still, that's a very good point. When you're working in a blend file, you can continue working with modifiers on. You shouldn't have to apply them when you give it to somebody, because a lot of export operators in Blender will apply the modifiers for you. Now it'd be good for you to check the file after the modifiers have been applied, that it's what you expect after the modification has been done. But that way you're not having to apply the modifier on your file, and then you need to make a change, and now your modifier stack is gone. Because that was the whole point of the modifier stack, is to make it easy to change things on the fly without destructively changing your base mesh.
Can you not? I thought you could also when you export a file. So if you went export FBX, I thought there was an option to. There used to be an option to say which program you wanted to. You were going to export it to, and it would keep the modifiers that you could take and apply the ones you couldn't. But I don't think you can do that anymore. I'm sure it used to be. When you go file export, I'm sure there used to be an option. I can't. I'm just looking. I
Yeah,
can't see
every
it.
export operator is a little bit different, and so some of them allow certain features and some of them don't. So like
Yeah.
the FBX export is going to have many different options than USD export.
Yeah.
But the
I can't
FBX
see
export
it.
does have apply modifiers.
Oh yeah,
That is a feature of the
it
FBX
says apply
export.
modifiers. Yeah. And you just have to make sure you tick that box, or it won't work.
Yep.
Okay. Any more questions? Have we missed any?
So just a comment for Wardred and Thibault. Thanks guys for already using the forum feature. That's exciting to see you guys already planning for the Halloween challenge.
Exactly.
See more people adding forums as well.
Yeah,
and
that's
us crew will make our own.
one of the criteria. One of the categories is for the best whip. So get your whips in that forum channel.
That's how we'll decide who the winner is for the whip. That's why some of these prizes are nice, because you don't have to be the best presenter. You just have to have some good whips.
You don't have to have the best finished article. You can have the really informative whip with lots of images.
Do we get a separate crew forum for these, or just like mix it in with the others?
Well,
I think just mix it in personally. I don't know. What do you guys think?
I would mix it in.
Yeah.
yeah. We just
We
keep.
can start ours. Put crew in front of ours. That way.
Yeah, or we could have a separate submission file, so when they get judged, we might win all the prizes.
Yeah, we'll submit. I think that's smart. We'll have a different submission.
A different submission
But we
channel.
can do that. Yeah, we can. Have
We can
our
keep our whips. We can put our whips in the same file, in the same forum. But the submissions, I think, we put separately. Otherwise, we might win everything. Well, I
don't know about that. Thibault's been winning rewards left and right, man.
Yeah. Okay, so I think that we can call it a day then, can we?
Yeah. Any more final questions before we leave?
Yeah. Wardred saying assumes I finish either in time. Like I said before, don't stress out on modelling and get perfect modelling, because like with the Astray course behind us, it's basically a silhouette. You know, keep it simple. Keep the model simple, and spend some more time on
VFX.
Spend more time on the effects. Yeah. And that camera course from Wayne is a good one to get your camera movement. The handheld camera especially.
Cool.
Okay.
I think we're done.
Yeah, I think so.
Watch the Blair Witch Project.
Yeah.
Handheld camera work.
That's right.
Yeah, yeah. But that's the style we're looking for, is that found footage kind of video. You remember those movies? What other movies are there? I can't remember any now off the top of my head.
Blair Witch was the big one.
Yeah.
That was the famous one. The Ring.
The Ring.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, let's call it a day. Time for
Hey, guys.
bed for me. Right, see you soon. Thanks everyone.
Bye.
Bye.